So I actually had to learn, how do I be single again? How do I be me again?
Right.
It's like, okay, kid is gone, but how do I be just me? I don't have to worry about the feeding time. I don't need to worry about the sleeping schedule because when you have kid, your identity is tied to the kid. But that has taught me a lot about parenting because I was able to give my daughter a lot of room to learn. And it's still hard. And as a single working mom, there are two thought processes you can have. One is that you can feel very guilty all the time. You're probably not going to be there all the time to look after their homework, or sometimes you have to travel for work. You can feel guilty all the time, or you can choose to think, well, I'm giving them space to learn how to be more independent, how to make their own decision. And I think to me, that is a blessing in a way.
I'm also just thinking, as I am in a marriage, like how I had to also learn just who I was again, like away from Sarah the mom, Sarah the wife, like what is it that made me me? That's also so important in a regular relationship, to find out what makes you you and what makes you thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have to take that intentional step to
Yeah.
find our own space, our own time. And, when I go out and go to a department store, I will have to intentionally tell myself not to look at kid stuff.
Hello and welcome to Make It Work, the bi-weekly podcast where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their career paths whilst putting family first.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Make It Work, and I'm your host, Sarah Wong. Today is a really special interview because I have Sherry Bang, all the way from Taiwan, who has been recommended by a really good friend of mine, who has also been a guest on the show, Sharon Fan. And not be confused by their names. And Sherry has an amazing story to tell today that I know will resonate with so many of us here. So Sherry is a mom to an 11-year-old. And like I said, she's currently living in Taiwan. And she has a truly amazing story of transformation from starting as a stay-at-home mom to reinventing herself at the age of 35. And her reinvention included deciding to become a single mom, which is something we'll get into a little bit more, as well as becoming an executive communications coach, to starting a very highly successful podcast that has over 1 million downloads today, and also another new podcast that she will be talking about as well, born out of her experience from that. And she has a great story of her transformation and how she has grown out of it, navigated it to become a newer and better version of herself. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome you, Sherry.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sherry. So if you could, please tell us about your story in 2 minutes or less.
It's such a pressure. The quick version is that, yes, I have gone through a lot of pivots, and the transformation is still ongoing. So I think it's a project. It's just a life project. And I have worn many different hats. Yes, I was a stay-at-home mom, but I also transitioned into a working mom, a single mom, and a coach, podcaster, and a brand specialist as well. So that's kind of the hats that I'm currently wearing. And currently I have started a new podcast called Soft Power Project, which I'm really excited about. But it's all about, I think, to sum it up, my life is just about starting over again and again. But I'm kind of loving it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, let us join you on that journey, Sherry, that you started, I guess, maybe in your 30s and now you're in your 40s. I think that's how you kind of explain your story. Yeah. So bring us to the point where you started to realize that you needed to change or do something different.
So when I grew up, I've always heard a story that women, it's quite traditional, women are supposed to be, have kids before 30. There's like a timeline. Have kids before 30, become a mom, have a career, but be flexible with the time. Family comes first, and the man in the house can provide it all. I don't know why, but that's kind of the story that I kind of grew up with. And it wasn't until that I actually became a stay-at-home mom, then I realized that's so not me. And it took me years to really have the courage to just say, I can't do this anymore. And once I start to be aware there is that desire in me, I think my life started shifted. So yeah, so I would say 35 was a pivotal point for me, and I'm still growing. 7 years in, I'm still trying to learn what that means and how I'm going to take my life to. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you share with us, Sherry, one
Mhm.
of those times where it was accumulation of different things that, like you said, help you realize that this is not the life that you were looking for?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's definitely accumulation of years as a stay-home mom. I mean, obviously, I love my daughter so, so much, but I also have this yearning and this desire to create something and to just to do something. And I've always knew that I'm not super creative when it comes to arts and like cooking. I'm not really good at them, but I wanted to do something really creative. And then when I was like 30, I started to become like a part-time, like a business English trainer or slash teacher. But that's really when I started to realize that, oh, I actually kind of like creating content and creating teaching material. So that's kind of my creative outlet. So I did that for about 5 years till I was 35. I wanted to actually make a career out of that. So that's when I'm like, I really wanted to open up my own consultancy firm, do my own thing. And that dream kind of triggers my desire to change in my personal life as well. So kind of everything. I mean, that year is a little bit, I would use the word violent because it changes so much. Like every aspect of my life just had to like cracked open. So it felt really, I mean, honestly, it was really tough. But it took many years for those things to fall apart, but fall into places. So it's hard for me to pinpoint one moment, but it's more like I just, I couldn't take it. I would go to sleep at night crying. I remember that, for many, many years of my marriage, I would be crying and I would remember my pillowcase would just be soaking wet. And so I think it's night after night of the same thing at that yearning. And I think at 35, I'm just like, I'm done. I can't do this
Wow.
anymore. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for kind of opening up such a raw and very real experience that you must have experienced for a period of time that must have felt like forever, I imagine, in that like feeling lost and not knowing what to do. Like what were some of the things that you sought out? Was it people, therapy, books? Yeah. What were the first few steps you took?
Funny enough, the first step I took is I went to a workshop about, I think it was like design life. I don't quite remember, but it was my first encounter to coaching. And I actually took the coaching, like I entered into ICA, and it was Academy for Coaches. And I actually started learning how to be a coach. And funny enough, when you learn to be a coach, you actually need to be coached.
Right.
So I think that's kind of how I started to become more self-aware and gain the tools to understand, oh, okay, so I'm using the word should a lot. Actually, that's not what I wanted, but why am I using that word? And in what part of my life am I using that word the most? So that's really when I start to kind of reflect. Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, just realizing that the word should was popping up so much in your life because I totally resonate with that too. About realizing I had a lot of these scripts that were like, okay, I really should be doing this and I should be at this place by a certain time,
Yeah.
earning this amount of money by a certain time, having X number of kids by a certain without really questioning. And it's funny that you said when you're a coach, you first coach yourself because I realized that as a parent, as a mom, the first person I'm parenting is really myself. Like I'm parenting the child, I guess, in me that has all these unresolved issues and different things just through the years of childhood and I guess growing up that I hadn't resolved to want to be a better person for my child. And it's so interesting that how we have these roles kind of like thrust upon us that we realize, wow, it's actually really an opportunity to grow and change, right?
Absolutely. I think I felt like I was born again after I had my daughter because I had to relearn so many different things and learning how not to be so controlling or learning how to be patient or I'm still learning that, by the way.
Yes. Whatever, what's in progress.
Yeah, I'm learning how to be, always taking a step back and how to listen. And again, it is like listening to yourself because I do think once you have a kid, it's they will come and trigger you all the wounds that you had that you never healed, and then actually kind of poke you and be like, yeah, you got to start, questioning that and kind of listen to yourself and understand where those triggers are coming from, or else parenting is going to be not as joyful.
Right. Yeah. So you were joining these workshops about learning how to be a coach, and then you realized you were the one as the first client, really, client number 0, that was you. And what next? Like, how did you start looking for work? And also, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit on your personal side, like, how did you navigate that whole transition as well, becoming a single mom?
So because I got divorced and also started my company all in the same year.
Oh, wow. And you're off
Yeah.
trauma.
So
A
it
lot of
is.
change.
In retrospect, I don't know if that was the best choice, but also at the same time, it's probably a really good thing for me to have a distraction. Because obviously when I went through my divorce, I was living in so much guilt. There was so many voices in my head telling me, how could you? What about the kid? You're single mom. That sounds to me at the time was it's like a label that I put on myself, that you're defected or you're failure. So I was really going through a lot of those emotions. But at the same time, because I had a business and I do have to go out and host my own workshop and meeting new clients. But again, like at the time, my clients are mostly adults. They're working professionals.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to coexist in these two parts of life. When I go home, to be honest, when I go home, there were many, many nights I would just cry. I would just sit there and cry. And if I already put my kid to bed, then I would just go to study, go to a different room, and I would just cry my eyes out. And the next day, when I had to go and host my workshop, I put on this makeup, outfits and heels, and kind of act as if I am someone that is excited about life. I am, but it's so different. So at the time, I actually learned the skill on how to compartmentalize my emotion. So basically, I was going through a really rough time at home, but when it comes to work, I tell myself, okay, all of these emotions get put in a box. I will deal with you later, but now I need to be in front of people. I need to be the host. I need to be someone who's presentable. So let's go for it. So in a way, it seems like such a pressure to do that. But at the same time, it is a bit of a blessing in disguise because I get to be distracted. Because at the time, honestly, you have to get distracted, or else you're just constantly thinking about the guilt and then everything. So yeah, I was kind of living two lives at the same, and during that time. Yeah.
Wow, that must have been a lot. What were your support systems at that time? Yeah. Where did you find strength and solidarity, maybe validation?
So my support system, I'm really lucky. My parents, they support me. So I get to live with them so they can help me to take care of my daughter when I'm working. So that was really, really helpful. And as far as friends, honestly, initially I didn't really tell a lot of friends about my divorce because again, I didn't know what to say. Because then a lot of people will ask me, why? Did something happen? Did he cheat? Or, these kind of questions. And I'm never someone who likes to talk about someone behind their back. To me, it wasn't helpful. It wasn't helpful for me at a time to go out with my girlfriends to just like trash my ex. It's not helpful because I fully understood the part of the reason why I got a divorce is because I didn't know myself enough. So I didn't choose someone that's supposed to be for me. I didn't choose the right person because I didn't know myself enough. So I take that responsibility. So that's why I don't want it to kind of trash talk anyone because it's not specifically his fault. So because at the time I didn't want it to be in a negative space. So I didn't tell a lot of friends. I probably told like a couple of friends, but there's not much they could do to help because if they had never gone through that situation, they don't really know. They wouldn't know, what sort of support that you need, but they're there to listen. So I was really appreciative of that. So yeah, I had to learn how to open myself up a little by little. So I started to talk a little bit about my divorce, not so much, but then if I found someone that willing to listen, then I'm much more willing to kind of talk about it. So I kind of built my support system a little by little at a time. Yeah, I didn't had it. I didn't have it before. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Thanks again for just opening up on that. And I'm curious if you had any
Mm.
advice at all to if there's anyone listening who's going through something like this.
Mm.
What is something you would say to her?
Oh my gosh, there are a lot, but because divorce, honestly, is so unique. I find that a lot of people who are going through divorce, they like to go and listen to other people's stories. Like, oh, because
Right.
when it comes to divorce, the messy part of it, it's the court, the legal system. Sometimes you don't need to go through that, but for a lot of couples, you do have to. And that's the really messy part. And I would always say that is the part that hurt the most. Because once you have to go through that legal system, the court, facing the judge and then facing the other person, it's literally a battle. And it breaks all the trust that you had in this person. And it also kind of made you question yourself, like, how could I marry this person? And now we're like enemies. So I think that is the hardest thing. And if anyone had to go through that, I would just say you have to remind yourself why you decided to get the divorce in the first place. Like remind yourself who you are, your goal is, look far. Don't look at what you have to deal with now. And don't put time pressure on yourself. Yeah, that's another thing because for a lot of people who had to go through that legal battle, it's not a quick process.
Right.
It could take for a long time. It could take years. And depending on different country, I think that would varies as well. So don't put time pressure on yourself. Go and live your life. That is just part of your life, but it's not the entirety of your life. So yeah, these are the couple things I would say is the most important thing for anyone who's going through the divorce. Yeah.
Right. Thanks so much, Sherry, for sharing and giving a bit of your personal story and flavor to that. I mean, it's something that's a sad reality of many of modern marriages, and so I don't think we talk about it a lot. But yeah, so I really appreciate you sharing. And I think what you said about having a distraction makes a lot of sense because it's so easy to just be totally consumed, right? It was part of her life that was such a big part as well. So talking about that distraction for you was creating this communications program, right? For executives. And so maybe tell us a little bit about how that transition happened for you from stay home to, part-time to now full-time working single mom. Yeah. What were some helpful kind of decisions or steps that you took to help you really get started from zero, essentially?
Yeah. I would say this. There are no steps because it was a lot of trial and errors. And I think the thing that I learned that's the most important is your mental health. I actually went to therapy for a couple years. Very consistently every week I would go to therapy. Not because I was showing any kind of depression externally, but it was definitely, I noticed that I am constantly in my head, wrapped up in guilt, wrapped up in anger, frustration, and I needed an outlet. So I would definitely say mental health is really important. Get the support, get the help. That's crucial, absolutely crucial. And in terms of how I transitioned, I think one thing that really helped me was that I wasn't afraid to ask for collaboration or ask for help. Because at the time, I had my consultancy firm and I was the sole owner. I didn't have anyone else. And but I needed partners. I needed strategic partners to help me grow.
Right.
And I would actually just kind of reached out to people who were doing a similar thing as I was doing and just like, hey, would you like to collaborate? But, a lot of times I think people, you either can see those as competitors
Right.
or you can see them as partners. And I decided then and there, I was like, no, they're partners. There's no competitors for me. So I kind of just reached out to a lot of people that are kind of doing something similar.
Yeah.
And I got some partnerships and my business and clients starts to grow. And also be patient. Be really patient and graceful for yourself. I think that's really important. Again, you can't push a lot of things. You cannot force a lot of things to happen, especially the audience that I was facing are mostly working professionals and they're in their executive levels and manager level. They don't like to be pushed. They're very busy. They know what they want. I'm sure a lot of your listeners are in that position as well. You guys know what you want. You are not someone who would just take, ads very lightly, or you just trust anyone who would sell you something. So really understand that and nurture that trust. So I think patience is really important as well. So not exactly steps, but I think these are just the 3 things I constantly had to remind myself. Yeah.
Right. So mental health, looking at your industry peers as collaborators and partners rather than competitors. I think that's a really great perspective, actually. So one of the things that I've learned as someone just kind of starting out as well in this portfolio career and trying to sort of do my own thing is that there's just so much to learn and so much to get from others who have been there and done that a little bit more. And that's been a huge kind of benefit I've gotten in joining a community of other folks trying this whole aspect of portfolio careers. And it's been a wonderful place where people give and share and talk about how they price themselves and things like that. So
yeah, absolutely. I really think that mentality has helped me to grow. And I think I was really lucky too, because of that mentality. The first year of me opening up the consultancy, I was able to break even. And that wasn't even my goal. Like I had no idea. Like none of my parents are from the business side. My dad was a certified accountant. My mom was a teacher. No idea about money. Okay. So my relationship with money also had to change a lot. That was one of the hardest things. No idea how to like do business. And I had no business plans. I didn't go to business school. I had no business plan. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to use a lot of my savings, but then at the same time, I'm just not going to put a time frame. But I think I was really lucky, but also at the same time, maybe it was the trust that I'm building. I was able to get a pretty good deal in the first year.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sherry, now looking back a little bit, I guess it's been, how would you say, about 10 years?
So you mean starting from 35? It was like about 7 years. Yeah.
Right. So looking back, do you feel like there's anything you would do differently at all?
Yes. I would definitely say believed in myself way more, harder, and had more dreams.
Dreams. Okay. Not drinks.
And dreams.
Like celebratory ones, right?
Exactly.
Celebrate your successes, yes.
Exactly. And celebrate the small wins.
Right.
I think that is something that I really don't do enough. I'm pretty sure a lot of your listeners are the same career-driven women. You're constantly elevate the bar, right? You wanted to aim higher and higher. But I forget to look back and just to see how much I have actually done, like accomplished. And that's to celebrate the wins only for me. Like it's not for social media, not for anyone else, but only for me. And I would definitely go back and do more of that because again, being an entrepreneur and making a podcast, and we also all have social media accounts. It's about putting yourself out there, and it's scary. It's vulnerable. It's scary. Sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes it's great. You get good feedback. You get okay feedback. You never know, but it's more about how I can preserve the good energy for myself do I choose to feel good? Do I choose to feel bad? It's a choice.
Mm.
And I wish that I had known this way earlier so I can always choose to look on the bright side because, hey, there's a lot that you can do. Basically, as an entrepreneur, you pave your own road. You don't have a formula, right, to follow. Yeah.
Amazing. And what about on the note of being a working mom? Is there anything that you wish you knew before? Because I imagine from being like a stay-home full-time, always with your child, sending your child to different things, to, now having to balance that with your own business, like that would have been a big kind of change. So
Yes, this is really interesting, and I really don't talk about it enough and love to get your feedback as well because one thing about divorce, one thing about being a single mom, it does taught me one thing, which is how to switch back to a single woman mode. So because as a single mom, you do get like your kid do have to spend time with a dad, obviously, but I'm the primary care. So she goes on like a couple weekends to her dad's. Initially it was really hard because you're kind of facing empty nest for like a couple days. And you actually cannot care that much about what's happening in the kid's life when they're over there because that you can't do anything about that.
Right.
So I actually had to learn really early on, how do I tell myself to switch? It's like, okay, kid is gone. Let me enjoy my life. How do I be single again? How do I be me again? Right? Because when you have kid, your identity is tied to the kid. But how do I be me again? Just me. I don't have to worry about the feeding time. I don't need to worry about the sleeping schedule. Just me. But that has taught me a lot about parenting because I was able to give my daughter a lot of room to learn. And it's still hard. It's not like a super easy thing, to be honest. But I am not afraid to give her room to make mistake. And as a working mom, there are two thought processes you can have. One is that you can feel very guilty all the time. You're single, single mom, you're working mom. You're probably not going to be there all the time to look after their homework, or even sometimes you have to travel for work. You can feel guilty all the time, or you can choose to think, well, I'm giving them space to learn how to be on their own, how to be more independent, how to make their own decision. So you get to be this mentor for your child. And I think to me that is a blessing in a way because my daughter is quite independent and she kind of has her own thought process on how to choose friend, how to choose who she want to hang out with. And I think that comes from having that space to be able to make the decision by themselves.
Right. Wow. That's really interesting. I'm just mulling on that thought where being in the situation you're as a single mom has given you that opportunity to let go and be yourself and to find a, I guess, boundary between like being overbearing versus giving your child to that independent. And it's so interesting how things that happen to you that isn't the most pleasant can actually be like great opportunity for you to grow and to change to be better. And I'm also just thinking, as I mean, obviously I am in a marriage, like how I had to also learn just who I was again as well, like away from Sarah the mom, Sarah the wife, like what is it that made me me? But it wasn't something that I had as a weekend, for example, when the kids are away, right? Because it's just a different situation. But that's also so important in any, in a regular relationship to find out what makes you you and what makes you thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is intentional. Like we actually have to take that intentional step to just find our own space, our own time. And, when I go out and when I go to a department store, let's say, I will have to intentionally tell myself not to look at kid stuff. Like, don't.
That's so true.
It's just you. But I need to remind myself again and again. So it's not easy. Letting go, it's one of the hardest things. Because again, like I want to control things, but there's so much you cannot. And that's the hardest lesson. The best lesson I'm learning is that I cannot control so much in life. Yeah.
Yeah. Taking a big sigh to let that sink as well. So, Sherry, okay, as we transition into hearing a little bit more about your lessons that you've learned in building this brand, I want to just give a bit of context. So, Sherry she is a 2 times podcaster. So she has a highly rated, highly successful podcast on Apple and Spotify called Executive Plus, and it's about teaching external communications for leaders. So I think it was started maybe about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And to see that kind of growth from being, a new podcast to now top 50 on Apple and Spotify with 60,000 listeners and, more than 1 million downloads, that is a huge achievement.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But 4 years. It's a lot of very disciplined, consistent output of content.
Yeah. So tell us, what has been, your biggest learnings and transformations out of it?
My gosh, there are a lot. So I think I would say creating content, it's content, right? Creating content, it's about being disciplined. A lot of people don't really think about that. I think a lot of people look at YouTuber and they're like, one night success, you go viral right away. That's not the case. Majority of the time, that's not the case. But I think you can still build something very beautiful by being consistent and disciplined. Again, I think at the time, 4 years, for the first 3 years, we never took a break, not even a bit. So we had 2 new episode consistently output every single week.
Wow.
We actually had another podcast, believe it or not, and that was a little bit short-lived, but that's 5 a week. So literally I had to output 7 episodes. And that nearly killed me and killed my editor. And so that was not sustainable. So don't do that. But definitely, so what it has taught me is that you do need to have that, again, discipline to want to do something continuously. You're passionate about it, but again, passion can come and go. Sometimes you're tired, you're like, I don't want to do this, but you do need to build that kind of like a habit for your listeners. So then they're used to your sound every week. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaway is that. And also, I think just know how to have fun during the process. Having fun is really important, and listeners can also feel that energy as well.
Right.
Yeah. And I really had a lot of fun. I mean, right now we're taking a little bit of break because, again, it's a lot. It's a lot for 4 years, constantly outputting content.
Wow. Kudos to you guys.
Yeah, we had like 400, I don't even know how many episodes we have now, 450 plus episodes. We don't even look at the charts. I don't think we are in the top charts at the moment because we're not so consistent. But yeah, I think back the first couple years in, we're doing well. We're doing well. And it did feel really good. And we met a lot of listeners, sometimes in different capacity, like workshops, meetings. They're like, hey, we listened to your podcast. I'm like, oh, cool. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
We met some really good friends from that as well. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, I mean, since you've been there for 4 years or so, like, I don't know whether it's a thing, because I've only been in this like less than 2, but it feels like so many people are kind of jumping on this now. Yeah, so I don't know if you caught like the early wave, or is this something that you see a lot of people doing right now as well?
I do think so I started doing COVID, right? That's really when a lot of people here in Asia started doing podcasts. I mean, podcast is not new. I mean, in the States, I think they had it 10 plus years, right? And yeah, a lot of people are doing it. I think I really applaud anyone who wants to jump into the podcast space. Is it easy? Definitely. It takes works. It's a lot of work, more work than you think. But I mean, I think I would say one thing, if anyone does wanted to start their own podcast, don't think about what's trendy or what other wants to hear. Think about what you actually wanted to share first. Because I do think that is one thing that stops a lot of people from continuing the path. Because if they're just following the trend, it's not sustainable. So it's all about sustainability if you're doing a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It has to be something that you truly believe because of the effort it takes that after a while, when your interest or passion starts going low and you realize that you still need to put in that consistent effort,
Mm.
it's just gonna kind of fall to the wayside.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. And the other thing that I learned as well, that for me, my number one lesson is also about discipline and the consistency and to maintain it. The other thing that I felt was a big lesson for me was that it's a fun thing to do, but it really, at least for me, does not bring a lot of monetary return. At least not directly. Yeah, not directly. I think it builds like a brand and maybe a bit of recognition and maybe some side projects and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm sure when we talk about this, we can that's like a whole another episode about the business of podcast. But yeah, I would definitely say podcast currently, if you wanted to start one, that's more of do it as a passion project. Monetary wise, it's a little bit harder, but I don't know how deep you want me to, how should we talk about this, or how deep we should talk about this.
Start our own separate issue. And we get a lot of, innocent queries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
that could be another.
Yeah, I'm actually interviewing someone next week, and she's been in the podcast space for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And I briefly touched on that monetization side. She had a lot to say. So I will come back to this and I will share more with you on. And if anyone's interested in knowing, should I start a podcast? Is that a good business idea? I think we'll able to answer that question.
We just started to say no. Cut it short. It's a good maybe branding idea. I don't remember this.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
So, well, all right. So now you have a new podcast. It's called the Soft Power Project, and you're a couple of episodes in. It has a very different focus. It's focused on women and their transformations, which is what I will be talking with you about.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So tell me, what made you start that out of your very successful podcast and your what's the story behind it?
Yeah, I would say it's something that I've always wanted to do, but I was always afraid to do. So believe it or not, I've never really talked about my divorce until this year when I started a podcast. It's something I would talk about, but I don't, I was just I'm a single mom. That's it. I would leave it like that. I never wanted to dive into it. But a lot of it came from maybe shame, maybe guilt, and maybe just my kind of limiting belief in me. And I think end of last year was really a pivotal turning point for me because I think I was sick of that thinking. I was sick of that limiting belief that I needed to be ashamed of it. And no, I'm not ashamed. I'm actually really proud of myself for what I've accomplished and what I've done. And also at a time I was facing a decision that I had to make to get out of the working environment that I was in because it wasn't good for me. And I needed to call it quit, but it was hard. Again, the job itself provided me really good income. It gave me a really good title. It fed my ego, to be honest. I felt good to tell people, hey, I'm the head of marketing in this company. So I have to let that part go as well. So letting go of my ego and letting go of the toxic environment and really choosing who I am and what I wanted to do. And Soft Power Project, that idea kind of come along because I started talking to a lot of women, and I see that a lot of women, we all had to go through certain life transformation and struggles. But I think women as a whole, we are actually very independent, to be honest. We don't want to talk about our issue. We don't think our problems are problems. We tend to keep it in because we're the caretaker of the family, of the workplace, of our friends. We don't want to talk about it. And also a lot of times I see that women, as we enter into workforce, we kind of think that we have to adapt this masculine mentality, wearing the power suits and how to persuade people, how to influence people, how do you present yourself. That is more of a masculine energy. Obviously, a lot of industry are built by men. But I think a lot of women are starting to realize that what about the softness? What about the other side of me that's living in me but so wanted to get out? How do I blend that in?
Right.
And I'm just really interested to know how different women find that soft part and take that with them into their role, mothers or leadership roles or just their lives. And yeah, so far it's been really fun. Everyone seems to have their own definition of it. And yeah, kind of just asking women's of their stories, which I'm so interested to listen to your story. Yeah, so that's kind of how Soft Power Project came about.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I've heard a few episodes now, especially the most recent one with Sharon, my friend, the one who connected us. And I love how introspective it is, really, about the transformations and the lessons that the interviewees have gained from it. And so if any of this has resonated with the listeners, we'll put a link to the show, the podcast Soft Power Project by Sherry, to check out, these amazing stories of women and how they bring their soft power into the different spheres of life. So on that note, Sherry, what is your soft power? How do you define that?
Wow, I think for now, and that may change later, for now is just embrace kind of all the flaws, all the emotions that I have and letting myself to sit with them. And because a lot of times I feel like, when I wake up in the morning, I want it to feel really good about the day. But I have negative thoughts and emotion that just come, and instead of blocking them and instead of suppressing them, I just wanted to sit with them and also coexist with them and be uncomfortable, but be okay to be uncomfortable. Because I do think a lot of learning comes from that. So I think currently, that's kind of my definition of soft power, just to be vulnerable and be okay with it. And you can still be very, very strong and courageous, even when you feel very vulnerable and raw at the same time.
Man, I want to press into that just a little bit. How does that look? Is that you kind of telling yourself that you speak it out? Do you write it? Because it's easy for negative emotions to take over and feel like that is the dominant theme of the day. And you go into, work feeling just like, oh, crap, that maybe you just didn't fit your to-do list, from yesterday, that you feel like it's just stressed about today, and going into that, like, well, how does that look for you? What you're talking about of letting it coexist.
To me, and this works for me, is I think I like to use my voice. I don't love writing things down. I tend to get very distracted when I do that. But I think that also worked for a lot of people, like writing in journals, but I'm not one of them. But what I do is I like to do voice message for myself. So I will leave a message for myself and I think one of the most important thing that I will constantly tell myself is, your emotions not you. Your thoughts are not you. And so you can choose to detach from them. And once you know the detachment, once you feel the detachment, you can coexist with them. So I think that's one of the tools that I brought in from therapy. And that has helped me throughout, because I realized that if I suppress a lot of emotions, it's going to come out at some point. And it's not going to be pretty. So I kind of do the voice message for myself, and to me, that's I can talk it out. Talking it out, I think that also really helped me. Sometimes it really, really, but if I don't have any like friends or people that I wanted to talk to about that certain subject, again, talking it out to voice message really helped me.
Wow, that's a really handy tip, actually. Yeah, because sometimes things can just get so much, and you write a note to yourself in the morning, and maybe you hear it again in the afternoon when you're just feeling overwhelmed. And that is a really very handy kind of little hack there.
Yeah, and it's quick.
Yeah, and it helps that you have a nice voice. So. All right, so wrapping up, Sherry, what do you hope your daughter learns from watching you juggle the season of your life of work and mothering?
I love that. I really like that question. I think I just want her to know that she can do everything. Whatever she put her energy towards, she can accomplish a lot. And to know that, again, I think it's okay to have emotion. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel frustrated, but find a way to handle those emotions in a healthy way. That's really important as well. So I am quite intentional when it comes to talking to her about the mental health because, again, I don't think it's ever way too early to talk about it. And my daughter, she's 11, so she's going through the teenage years, which is amazing. If anyone's have a kid in the teenage
I
years,
can't wait.
it's a whole different story. But they really needed that skill set because they're constantly making decisions and they have issues with their friends. Their friends are not talking to them, all that kind of thing. So they needed a way to process that emotion and not to just, when they feel angry or frustrated, when they just kind of yell, like help them to process things a little bit better. And yeah, and then also just I make sure that she sets goal for herself and she can visualize the goal and have a more positive mindset. Yeah. So that's the two biggest thing that I am more intentional with my daughter.
Wonderful. Yeah. Signature question for you, Sherry. Or
Mm.
can you have it all?
Let's see. Yeah, I was thinking about that question. Yes, we can have it all, but I think it really depends on how you define having it all. The way I used to define having it all means like money, health, love, and wonderful kids who listen to you, travel and all that. That was my old definition. But now, to me, having it all just means feeling grateful, healthy, if you're lucky, healthy, having healthy families, honestly, that's if you're lucky, and doing something you love. To me, yeah, you can definitely have it all. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much, Sherry. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your stories and your insights. It's been a wonderful, really wonderful conversation. So listeners, if any of this resonates with you, please hop over to Sherry's podcast as well, which we'll share links below. And yeah, thank you for another episode of Make It Work. We'll see you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Make It Work, where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their careers whilst putting family first. Please help others discover the show by leaving a review and rating on wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. Meanwhile, here's to you, making it work.